Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. I am so excited to welcome you to another episode of Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I am here today with Denise Miceli, and we were actually having this great conversation. I'm like, whoa, we need to press record. She is really passionate about exactly that, igniting your passion and purpose to align your life. And so, Denise, without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
So yes, thank you so much, Sharice, for having me on. This is really, I feel this is my group, women over 40. We have a passion about being mothers, but we also have a passion to contribute to the world in some way. That's why we are mompreneurs or entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, a lot of us, right? We want to do something, but we don't necessarily want to be like overwhelmed by it, but we want to give something back from everything we've learned in life, whether it be as parents or in our area of what brings us joy. And so for me, I became a coach out of a career of being a guide, a teacher, and a leader in education. So I have a unique perspective on parenting, being somebody who parents came to with the problems they were having with their kids, and really using my psychology background to kind of help them to see that in a lot of cases, as moms, as parents, we tend to want our kids to be happy, of course, right? I mean, why do we have them? We experience the joy of having them. But yet sometimes in that zeal to make them happy, we're over pleasing, over giving, and we're modeling for them this type of behavior that kind of disconnects us from what we really want. And of course, the more kids that you have, the more demands are all around you. So it's just almost easier to be like, okay, yes, 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 yes. And then later you're like, now you're worried because you maybe shouldn't have said yes on something. And so it really developed out of my own personal background, which is why to me, coaching seemed like such a good fit after leaving my career in that field of 20 years. But I've had just so much training in like emotional intelligence and growth mindset. And so I used to do that a lot with my teachers. I was a leader and with schools that weren't doing well. And like I said, I would have parents coming to me, like almost asking me for therapy. They were just like, my little kid is a tyrant, what should I do? And so I would work with them on like, how do you even talk to your kids to promote that kind of mindset, to get them to understand that, you know, I want to give you everything that you want. But as a parent, if of course not your 2-year-old, but if I say yes to everything that you want, I'm not a good parent. So I'm going to sometimes have to say no to you, and actually being able to have that conversation with a young child and to have them understand that, it's not okay for them to go stomping away if you have to say no to something. And so that's what we look at in, so I founded Rock Your Blocks after I retired, and I have a passion for really working with women because I've been there and have shifted careers. I'm blessed to have had 2 careers. In my 30s, I was a chef. And then I started to realize that my body and my health was going down. And I went back to school and got my master's in education and leadership. And so I'm blessed to have that 20-year career. But what started to happen to me, Sharice, was that at the end of that, I was ready to go up to like the next level. And I just started to feel like, even though I was good at it, and this is really key, we can be so good at something, but we have the wrong audience,
Yeah.
right? And if you're in traditional like roles, even if no matter what your interest is now, if you were working for a corporation or you're working for a bureaucratic public agency like I was, they're not necessarily open to your creativity, to your ideas, to your style. And that's what I started to see as I started interviewing for these higher positions. I was like, getting the message that, yeah, we know you're smart, but like, we don't like it. We don't like we don't like how you deliver it. And yet when I would work with teams, I would sometimes work with up to 50 people, and the work was so engaging and people were leaving there so much more informed about like the root causes of their problems. So ironically, when I went to go leave it, I was so stressed because I was afraid, what am I going to do? Like, am I going to be good as a coach? And I knew I wanted a coaching business though, because I had started one while I was doing all that other work. That's how much it meant to me to help people on a personal level. And, so having gone through those transitions where you kind of look fear in the face and you're like, you know what? I know that this is deep in my heart. It might not be as easy or as I think it should be, but I know I have to go forward with this. So that's kind of the background of who I am and how I got to be involved in working with women that are like 40s and up that are just like, you know what? I can be something else. And it doesn't matter if I'm 50, 60, it doesn't matter. I can take all that knowledge I've learned in life and become a consultant, become a coach, and you can do it part-time. You don't have to give your whole life over to something. Because I think sometimes as we get older, people are like, like starting a whole business. You know what? It doesn't have to be that complicated. Use what you do know, pick out of it what brought you the most joy. And for me, it was working with people.
Mhm.
And, I used to work with helping teachers to just even have better communication, like with their other, their colleagues, students, how to have better communication instead of like slapping somebody on the back to ask for a pencil. I mean, simple things like that if we don't work on those skills. And so that's really my passion now, is to like share how I walked in these shoes and how there are so many tools now that we have, neuroscience backed tools that state if we can learn these things about ourselves, what are our biggest saboteurs? What are those inner voices that, like, as soon as we have that exciting idea, they come in and go, you're not going to do that. Like that inner judge, that inner critic, it is so alive in us, especially with all the craziness in the world right now, all the uncertainty. I even have, my daughter who's 30, she'll be like, how can I think about how I can get better when we don't know what's going to happen in the world? And I'm like, we can't control that, but what we can control is our reaction. So
Right.
if you feel that kind of anxiety around what's happening, then this is the work for you. This is, like really on the go tools where, you don't have to sit in meditation for 20 minutes and then expect that to last your whole day, but little things you can do to realize, okay, what I'm doing right now in front of the computer isn't working, right? When everything starts crashing, it's a good time to step away, take a walk, just
Mhm.
anything, even just 2 minutes to just bring yourself back to who you really are. So you can tell I can talk all day. So I'll stop there and let you kind of ask me anything that you're,
The questions. I think that,
yeah.
it is nice. And I believe that a lot of the listeners that we have, they had a career, that they started and then realized, because being a mom, it is tough trying to juggle both those things. Or, you're an executive person and you were laid off, and now what? And for me, I mean, that actually happened where I was giving my all and even staying overnight, still working to be able to get accreditation, because I was also in the education industry. And as soon as we got the
Okay.
accreditation, they're like, okay, thank you, bye. Like, what? Excuse me? And it's because the CEO's best friend needed a job. And so he was moving to where I was. And so I just thought, okay, how much time, energy, effort? Like I pawned my kids off to a cousin because I was going through divorce at the time as well. And for a month, so they could play with their cousins and I could focus on this accreditation. And all of that, and then missing my kids just to be told thank you, but see you later. And so that's where I
Wow.
really started to
That's
realize that,
amazing.
um, people, they sit and talk about, a lot of people are solopreneurs because they don't trust other people to do their business. And you got to think about it. That is like so wrong thinking, because
Yeah,
if you, I mean, there's a lot of people that were like me, that treated somebody else's business like their own. They took pride in it. They wanted to
sure.
build it. They wanted to do things. And so trusting in people and realizing that you can work for yourself, but you can have people work for you to make your life easier as well. And I think a lot of solopreneurs, they get stuck in this rut. And really, I think the question you have to ask is, how high do you want to go? I mean, how much do you want to accomplish? I spoke with somebody recently where she only works 3 hours a week or a day. That's it. That's all she wants to do because she's raising 5 kids. Previous podcast, by the way. But if you look at how to, like, what do you really want in your business? And then from there, now you can start kind of forming how you're going to go there. But you talk about procrastination and perfectionism, the two
Yes.
things that honestly, I look back at the last 3 years of my life that since I've been like gone into this whole journey that I'm doing now, and it's tough. Those two
Mhm.
things, you hear a lot about, well, I'm going to do this course, or I'm going to do this, but I can't sell it until like I have everything written and everything's created. And so really, is that the way? Because what if you create all this stuff and somebody doesn't like it or you can't sell the product? Now you've wasted all these hours for something that doesn't even exist, and nobody has a desire for. So talk to us about how to heal from getting over that perfectionism and procrastination.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple things that you said, but I think where we have this avoider kind of mentality, it comes from, you know, also having another, what I call saboteur. It's an internal sort of
Yeah.
pathway that we've worked on, that we've gone down it so many times. So when we are avoiding something, it's typically because we think that everything has to be perfect to move forward. And it comes from a fear. Right? Everything is like on a continuum of love and fear, right? Going forward and towards something, you have to trust yourself enough to go towards it, realizing that everything you're doing isn't going to work. So I'll give you a great example because I'm working with a bunch of others in this program in positive intelligence, which is like what I'm so fired up about right now, to helping people get at these saboteurs. And what I hear other coaches saying is I can't start taking calls or, getting appointments to, give this call until my website's perfect. Okay. I've had a lot of training in social media and all of that. And what I say is, first of all, who's your niche? Second of all, where do they live? And third of all, we are past the days when websites really sold anything when you're a coach. There's a million coaching websites. Most people don't know enough about SEO to get anybody to them. And we are past the days of 10 years ago where people were paying money to have people get to their website. We're not doing that anymore. And if people go to your website, you can see they barely make it past the first page. And we have that syndrome where we only want to have what is on one screen. And people have like their first page is like scroll, scroll, scroll. They don't have the attention span. So I say to people, and it makes me think like I should like offer a presentation just on this because this is what slows entrepreneurs. The idea that everything has to be perfect. And guess what? That is a saboteur. That is a perfectionist. We call it stickler. That is like, I can't move forward unless everything's perfect. And I fear that if it's not perfect, no one will want to book with me. Well, guess what? You have these skills and you're showing up for a reason. But if, let's say, all of your people are on Facebook and you're posting once a week, you're not going to necessarily connect with them. So, how about a Facebook community that speaks to their specific need?
Mhm.
And so that way they can have some exposure to you. They can see things that you're posting and get notified that you're going to go live stream or do, you know what I mean? Like, so there, it's how are you spending your time? And I've been there. I did it all. I mean, I've had so many different versions of my website, and I finally realized, you know what? I started deleting pages because I could see back end that people weren't even going to the page where I was sharing my Medium blog articles. Like they can go to Medium for that, right? So have links, have your biggest message though be what they see when they come to your page. But that's it. I mean, you really should just have what I offer, how to contact me. Here's all my links and click them and get something free, right? Get on my email list. And so we waste a lot of time on avoiding because we're afraid of not being perfect. And the fact is, if you want to be an entrepreneur of any type, you have to understand that every step forward is a measure and there's going to be a lot of fails. And if you're so mired in these kind of stuck ways that are, perfectionist and avoiding and all of that, you're not going to get your foot out the door. And you're going to feel very discouraged because, like, I've had people tell me they've been working on their website for 6 weeks. And I'm like, if you count the hours that you've spent, you could have hired someone and it would be done by now. because there are many, many tools out there. As there's younger people who have these tech skills, we can hire them on Fiverr. We can find them, source them, see even video editing, however you put your message out there. So when we know it's not an area of strength and we spend that kind of time, we're really not focused in on what is going to be most practical. So when we avoid or we postpone or we get caught up in the details, we are really affecting our wellness because we have anxiety over spending that much time. We're kind of cranky, so we might even be affecting our relationships, and we're not moving forward. And then we're validating our own fears because we're not focused on the right thing, right? So
Yeah.
that's one thing I would tell all of the mompreneurs out there is know your audience. When I first started this, I was like, I'm going to help all women who have anxiety. It was like, when you are too big like that, you're going to miss everybody. So
Yeah.
really try to think about, who do I want to talk to? And what is it that I solve for them, so that you can find out where they are. And there's great data about where different ages, different sexes, different incomes, where all of these people spend their time. And that's where you want to focus. So, it's otherwise what we have with this procrastinator is we have this constant simmering anxiety. We're not trusting ourselves, and we're afraid to even make those little steps where, you put out, let's say, a new PDF, that your fillable PDF you're giving away. Well, you put it out there, and it's not getting clicked on. Okay, that's all right.
Mhm.
Either do something new, maybe try a short video instead. We know that people are not reading content as much.
Right.
So look at your age group. Sometimes your age group, maybe they like to get on a community. Maybe they like to go to a webinar about something that's going to help them. But keeping it to what it is that, who it is that you're trying to reach. And when you procrastinate, you are like I said, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're not focused on the right thing, then, you're not making progress. And like you mentioned, and I think this one is really big, we begin to distrust other people and not see opportunities.
Mhm.
So when we kind of take the time, and this is part of what positive intelligence about, it gives you all of these options of how to quiet your mind, so that you can let these saboteur, you can see them coming. And I'll give you an example. Everyone has the judge. Everyone has the judge, right? We've all thought of these great ideas, and then what comes immediately? Oh, you're not going to be able to do that, right? We have those things. So we even say, name it. Name your judge. So I named mine Judge Judy, just out of old school. My mom used to love that show. And so, but you name it and you go, sorry, Judge Judy, you're not winning out on this. I hear you, but stop. I'm doing it. I'm going to try it because it feels right to me. And so it's self-awareness, like anything. But we know now that through neuroscience, that when we take that time, 1 minute, 2 minutes, we don't have to be these Zen meditators. We can do these things on the fly. So part of positive intelligence, what you learn is, you learn tools like using sensory, using visual, closing your eyes, using tense and relax. We teach you a number of tools, and you'll pick your favorites, right? Not everybody's going to resonate with all of them. And we put them into an app. So now you've got this reminder. Oh gosh, I've been sitting in front of the computer for 2 hours. I feel the tension building. Time to get up. And you can do it on the way to the bathroom. Like, do it. And that's the beauty of this is, and I've done so many different coaching programs. The beauty of this is it puts accountability in your hands, and it allows you to see, what are my top saboteurs? And for me, I'll tell you, I had the pleaser. And if we look at ourselves as moms, we want our kids to be happy. So often that develops in us. We can probably look to our parents and see that our mother had that, or a grandmother. Someone else showed us that. And, a lot of people say all of this, stuff happens to you when you're a kid. No, it happens every day. I mean, maybe when you were younger, you felt like you had to be pleasing, but it's not just exclusive to childhood, right? We get triggered all the time now by life, by our partners, by our kids. And so we have to have some kind of a tool to calm down the nervous system, to connect with ourselves and say, wait a minute, you know what? I don't have to make that choice. I don't have to avoid this. I don't have to believe that inner critic that's piping up in my head. And as an entrepreneur, not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. If you do not have a thick skin these days, it's very hard. And if you try to do everything yourself, like now when I'm meeting other coaches and a lot of times on podcasts, it's like, oh my gosh, we should collaborate
Yeah.
because we are offering different things. And here's the thing, you can go side by side with another coach and your willingness and how you said sometimes women are just like they don't want to even get on each other. Get on everyone's page, see what they're doing, see what's resonating with people. Maybe you have the same niche, like you and I have the same niche, but I'm not for everyone. You're not for everyone. Like I might appeal to older mothers, you might appeal to younger. And so to me, when you have that hesitation, there's some judge inside of you. There's some belief inside of you that you're not good enough to stand up next to someone else, right? When really it's not about that. It's about if you've had a coach or a therapist before, not every single one you feel, connected to. And that's totally normal. And you have to realize, I share this like you have to meet 10 people to get one client.
Mm-hmm.
So if that like is so daunting to you, there's some inner work that you can do to clear that, or you can just say, you know what? I don't know if I'm really up for the sales part of this. And I'm sorry, but as a coach, we are selling ourselves.
Yeah.
And you have to have a compelling message, a compelling answer for your potential clients, and you have to be okay with them saying no. I think that's why a lot of people don't even want to book calls these days because they feel like, oh, I'm going to be on this high pressure campaign, and that's intimidating. But if it simply isn't, for you, or I've had people say, you know what, this is so great, but I know I can't commit to it right now. Okay. Can I keep you on my list? Can I reach out to you later? So these are a lot of the fears that bring up this kind of procrastination, this pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are doing that and you sense that, then it is really a great way to figure out how are these saboteurs kind of working together and how can I begin to see the impact that they're having? And then just imagine, even if I could lessen them a little bit, I could begin to really tap into my inner wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really kind of how you would approach these things and know that it's going to take different tools. I mean, we're living in a different time right now. And, I remember back in the 80s, therapy was the big thing, right? Therapy was like, oh, everybody's going to couples therapy. There's all this like buzz around it. Before that, people didn't do that.
Right.
And so sometimes people don't have that background and context, but that became very big then. And now look where we are. It's many decades later, and therapy's kind of been overused, to be quite honest. And for me, I've done different styles and tried all different things, very open to it, having a psychology background. And I can say, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I just want to get to the heart of it. And that's why coaching really appealed to me. I don't want to keep rehashing it because it was only making me sadder. And then getting sadder from talking about it is like, oh, well, I can give you this medication. Oh,
And
I
that
want
was
to solve the problem and move forward, right?
mm-hmm. And I love chiropractors. I went to them for years, but it's the same type of thing. It's like you have to
Yes.
keep coming back every three times a week. I'm sorry, you don't need to go see a chiropractor three times a week. I know I love you chiropractors, but really,
Yes.
and it's the same thing with therapy. How long can we talk about the same thing over and over before we need to stop being a victim and move forward? And
Exactly.
there's specific things. I'm not generalizing because there are certain
Sure.
situations where people do need that.
Where you do need it. And there are times where I'll say, hey, you know what? I think it would be beneficial to have a therapist. You can
Right.
still work with me.
Absolutely.
But, if it's extreme trauma or, anything, really, really big, what the signs are of that. But for most people, what they really need is accountability and
Somebody.
they need a way to change their perspective,
Yeah.
their mindset around what it is they're stuck with right now, whether it's their role as a mother, their role in work life. How do I mesh the two together? Whatever it is, it's about like being more happy and being able to perform at what you want to do. And then that, of course, is going to impact your relationship. So when I discovered this and I went through the program myself personally, because I never promote anything I haven't done myself, I was blown away by the data that you get and the accountability. And I'm a long time meditator. I've been meditating for years, but I feel like today there is a hesitation with that, and rightfully so. It's not for everybody. And so I feel like many people were missing out on my coaching when I was kind of just going with that. So I wanted to find something, and boom, one of my fellow coaches said, "Oh my gosh, Dee, you have to look at this because it is a way to do it without that." In fact, the creator of it went to Stanford and focuses on that type of person, like the corporate, and works with teams, corporate teams who are just not communicating well, full of controllers, full of sticklers, and all of that, and helps teams to actually become aware of how they can use this methodology to really bring them back to like their sage, their wisdom that they already have, but they're not trusting because of all of these situations we've been through in life. We develop habits around them, habits of mind, emotional patterns, all of that. And we don't have to live in constant anxiety. We're not going to get the best results if we're either, I talk about that continuum that you probably heard of. It's like we are all somewhere on this continuum of like depression, being sad about the past, or anxiety, being worried about the future. We're somewhere on that schema the whole time. So how can we be in a place that's more balanced, that lets go of those things? Because most people realize at this point there's something I'm holding on to from the past that keeps clouding how I move forward.
Yeah.
And that's really the work here. Yeah.
And I think it's also when you start to continue to get in a rut, then you lose confidence and belief in yourself. And there was
Absolutely.
a mentor years ago that have you been called to do something and speak on stage or blah, I don't even care what it was. And his biggest thing, like day one, was you guys just decide on one thing. Like if you want to go speak about this and you want to do this, you want to do this, fine. Eventually you could probably do it all. But let's just do one thing right now. And so if you're feeling that overwhelm, very much what you said, it's focus on the one thing and just
Yeah.
decide, make a decision. And that's going to start creating your confidence. And that's going to start creating the momentum. And they talk about like 1 or 2 tasks a day. I coach a team of women every day, Monday through Friday, for 15 minutes a day. They get on the
Oh,
call
wow. That's great.
and here's what
Awesome.
I want to do. Here's what I want to accomplish. And then the next day it's I accomplished it or I didn't. And here's what I want to do today. And it's one professional, one personal thing. That's it. That's all you're committing to. If you want to do other
Love
things,
it.
great. But let's just do 2 things. And
Yeah.
say they get on the call and it's okay. Well, what was preventing you from doing that? Why didn't you get that done? And so if you can just start to get some momentum going, then you can start to believe in yourself. And that perfectionism and that procrastination just it starts to eventually go away because the more confidence it replaces the lack of confidence. So
Absolutely. And like in working with other coaches too, it's like you said, we see other people who might have a strength where we don't. And instead of being like, hey, I have a strength over here, can we like just have a call together and chat? Maybe we can. Instead of that, we kind of like fearfully back away, like, oh, they're so intimidating, when we instead could be saying, they're really strong in social media or whatever, but I'm really strong in staying focused or whatever it is. And how can I? So I try to, with all the people I meet on the podcast and everything else, be like, hey, can we collaborate on this? Because honestly, I've met the best people
so right.
through this experience, honestly. And I'm just like, whoa, I'm blown away. And there is power in numbers. Maybe it's just that we, go on each other's channels, or, we do an event together, because honestly, in the past week, I've been so convinced that I didn't realize how much I knew about marketing. I mean, and I'm not saying I'm at 6 figures or anything. I'm not there yet, but I feel like when I'm talking about it, people are going, "Oh my gosh, you're right. I'm trying to do too much." And I'm guilty of that too. I have also the restless, right? So the shiny object syndrome. How many emails do you get a day where you're like, "Oh, that sounds intriguing. Oh my gosh," right? And then all of a sudden we have a million different offers coming at us. And I was trying to write a blog. I was trying to do a YouTube channel, audio meditation. I'm like, D, you're not, any of them are, they're not all growing. So clearly,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm going to focus in on the coaching. I'm going to focus in on connecting with people. And I'm going to focus on 1 or 2 social media outlets only,
Yep.
because that's where my people are. They're on LinkedIn or they're on Facebook. Some on both, some only on one. But, when you narrow like that, all of a sudden you feel like less stress because you're doing this thing every day with these women. It's like, do one thing. If you find yourself the shiny object syndrome, you need to really reevaluate and maybe have a session and say, okay, I have this restlessness about me that is always interested in something new. And if I want to progress, I have to let some of those go. So I tell my people that find that you need to spend like an hour every week deleting and unsubscribing emails because I guarantee you those folks have more than 50,000 emails that they just don't even look at or clean out. And sometimes they're subscribed with more than one email to the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a sign that you are kind of all over the place. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to rein that in because there's so much messaging out there, including our own. Right. So we got to listen to our own advice.
I love that. I love that. And, finding your one thing in that authenticity and your passion, that's what you talk about.
Correct.
It's let's get back to it. And I actually have been doing a cleaning or a firing, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, I had this mentor and okay, you need to do this. And boom, I did it. And this and this and this. And before I know it, how much money I was spending every single month. I'm like, oh my gosh. And do I really use this? And do I really use that? Because if I don't, I'm firing them because I'm not going to keep paying for something. And one good example, Audible, right? So my daughter set up an account with one email and then I had one on another email. So now I'm paying for two emails, Audible, every single month. And I didn't have time. And so I'm like backing up these credits or whatever. So I go buy all these books. And then it's like, well, now I got to listen to these books. And so I have 16 on this one and 10 on this one or 12.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then
Perfect
it's like,
example. Yeah.
okay, you know what? I'm going to cancel my membership until I listen to all these books. And so you don't have to. And it's the fear. So I'm like, the fear, if I cancel, I'm not going to have access to it. And then I thought, wait, I don't use it anyway. So
Anyway, right. But it's that FOMO, right?
yeah.
It's so, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And so, I mean, I think like, let's start there where, again, getting back to the focusing and getting back to like, get rid of your distractions and start over. And I can honestly tell you when I did that, my business skyrocketed where I made money that I've never in my life imagined that I would have. And then I all of a sudden started getting distracted and I'm like, dang, I got to get back there now. And so that's where I cannot, like, you're preaching to the choir because it is so
Yes.
important.
No, it sounds like you have really made progress on this. And so that idea that we have all this wisdom inside of us, but it really is blocked by what we have persistently done. And that's where I'm a geek as far as like research on the neuroscience, because I know that speaks to a large amount of people who are in the technical world and they're not going to stop and meditate. And I was doing 20 minutes every morning. And I used to tell people this, oh, morning is my best time. No, it's not about the morning. It's about the fact that you were clearing your mind to be really laser focused. And like during that time, I would actually get hits of like, you need to focus on this today. Like I would get those intuitive hits, and I realized that I have this great intuition about what to do in things. And I wasn't listening to it. But now I don't spend that much time at once. I do 2 minutes here, 5 minutes here, at most 10 or 12 minutes, where maybe like it's midday and I just need a break from the computer. I'll do like 10 or 12 minutes and it's right there. And right now I feel like focusing on my breath and then do that. And I've had some neurodivergent people who are like, oh, I love the tactile, so you can kind of pick what works for you. And then it like measures how much like wisdom you have right now, and you forgot all about it all day. It's at zero, your tank is zero, and you're trying to produce. So this is where when we're entrepreneurs, we get to create our day, right? We get to say, I don't want stacked appointments all day. I want to break in between so I can recenter myself. Even working on a big project, I need a break to get up and move around. You can also do the moving meditation, so there's a guidance for that. So there's ways that you can begin to get in touch with your inner wisdom, to gain, to be able to get so much more out of your work time than you would if you're like, I'm going to work on this. When I first started my YouTube channel, I was working on it a ridiculous amount of hours at once. And then I was walking away from the computer. It wasn't producing what I wanted to produce anyway. So when we push ourselves like that and we're at such a high anxiety or stress load, we're not producing obviously the best work anyway. So I love that you're doing this daily 15-minute. I love that. I feel like we all need to say, what is it I have to achieve today? And how can I stay with that
Mhm.
to really increase my impact? Because my goal is eventually to be able to hire people like you, to be able to have people that are working on these things that, that I don't want to work on. I don't want to create social media posting. That's not my wheelhouse. And it's not something. I'll create these videos and I do live streams in my Facebook community. And then I want to hand off that video and say, hey, make me some reels out of this. Like I want to be able to just have that kind of freedom where I can spend the time doing what I love about it, meeting with the women, working in a one-on-one, working in a small group. I have a course that I do, and that it's a 3-month commitment. I do a weekly session live with a small group of women that are trying to really figure out what it is they want to do next, what's blocking them from believing they can do it, getting at self-limiting beliefs and doing that kind of work. And then it's a course, so you get to go back in and re-watch, you get some bonuses in there, and you just get all kinds of like tools and supports to get you through this journey. And I've just had such a wonderful experience of women like coming back months later and they're just like, I got that job in a nonprofit. I left my high pressure sales job. So I feel like it's kind of the soft side of helping women with their career, but it really is so personal when we get so stuck in the fear. We get so stuck in the patterns that we can't even see what's possible. When I first decided that I needed to leave that long established career that I had all that expertise in, I didn't have those things. And I was like, oh, having like nightmares about what would happen without that paycheck, right? If we've had that corporate job, we know it's like you get kind of addicted to that.
Mhm.
And I felt that fear and I got through it anyway. Now, had I had support like us, I would be probably not have taken so long to leave.
Right.
Being the pleaser, and also knowing and hearing validation that I was good at it, that gets kind of addictive too. And so it's like you have to be able to walk away when it's going well and it doesn't get to a point where it's not going well. So
I love that. Okay, we're going to switch gears real quick. I want you to imagine yourself sitting on a park bench, and this pregnant woman walks up and sits next to you. And this is her very first baby. She has the world ahead of her that she doesn't know what she's facing. And you've had all the lifespan, obviously, because your daughter's older. And so, any advice at any stage, what is one piece of advice that you would give to that mother?
I would say that when I think back, and this is an activity that we use, like what would you say back then, and then what would you say later in life? But what I would do is I would share with her that it's really important as your child grows to understand that what motivated you to become a mother, right? And allow yourself to see that, what your motivation was. And for me, it was to have a really great relationship with a daughter. And then I magically had a daughter. So, but how can you allow your child to have the experiences that they have with your guidance without trying to make them into whatever it is you needed from becoming a mother? And because like I can remember even reading a book, you may have heard of it, I don't know, it's a little older, but Not With My Daughter, it was called.
Hmm.
Now, what's that about? When I look back at the older books that I had, it
Yeah.
was about wanting to heal what had been a wound between, the mother wound that I had with my mother. I wanted to be the supportive mother, the one that was not overly controlling or, whatever the case may be that you had with your mother. So I would just encourage that mother to, obviously, you're going to love your child in your own way. But as they grow, just allow them to fault to make their mistakes, because if we try so hard to be the best mother, sometimes that will cloud what that child is all about. And we want to let that child really become who they are and make those choices. And so I would encourage her to do that. And as they get older, instead of giving them an answer, ask them a question. And
Mhm.
that was super powerful to me. Also, the mother become teacher and administrator is don't give them on a plate the answer. Ask them, what do you think you should do about that? Really make them think. And when they do that, they come back to you with their authentic reaction to the situation. And of course, you can again ask another question, but you're empowering them. And so if I could go back and do do it differently and speak to that young mother who is all excited and everything, it would be to do that, to be the guide instead of the we feel we have to mold and shape them into certain things because we didn't have that, to really look at who they are uniquely, each child.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And it's interesting because my daughter came in. So this cute little, I can't know if you can see it, but every child is different because I have six
Yes.
kids and it's summertime and I'm like, okay, well, I'm working or I'm doing some stuff. So while I'm doing these things, they need to not be on the phone or TV or a computer. I don't care what I hate the technology.
Not all tech all day,
Yeah.
right?
And so I've started writing these lists for them because we need structure and organization. And like some of my kids, they eat it up and they're done as soon as they can be. And then I have other kids, they're like, eh. And so I think that we have to make sure, I love that advice. And it's so important because I've been dealing with that where I want my kids to be this certain way because this is how it needs to be. But
Right.
they clearly have different ideas. And that's okay because they really do need to figure it out. And if you are giving the answer like you talk about, then they come back and blame you and they can't take ownership of their
And
decision.
so it takes that accountability away. And also, what if you said to those, maybe the resistant ones, or maybe all of them, what if you said, I want you to make a list that's non-tech based,
Mm-hmm.
5 things that are non-tech based that you're going to, do until noon. And then after that, you got a free pass for so much time. And that way they have to create that. I'm going to go to the library and actually open a
Yep.
book, right? Because some of them don't even know how to do that. And I saw this funniest thing where they ask kids on the street how to address an envelope, for example.
Oh my gosh, I
It
know.
was hilarious. They
Or
were putting the stamp in the middle, the stamp
yeah,
on the back. Like they didn't know how to do simple things. So, like challenging them to look at it and say, hey, what would you do if you didn't have these tools? Because that's how I grew up, right? And you get them to really think, and to maybe perhaps want to go to the library. I mean, I remember when my little one, she, we would go to the library and sit with the teacher who would read the story. And like, do we even do that anymore with young children? I mean,
I do. We actually went this week.
that's
They asked to
awesome.
go. They're like, Mom, please take us to the library. Absolutely, let's go, you know?
That's wonderful. And if more people did that, I think we would have more well-rounded kids. But
Mhm.
it's when, we would find out that kids weren't doing well. They were putting them to bed with an iPad at 6. Oh my gosh, their brain is forming and we're shutting it down for them. And it's a lot of times parents are exhausted, but when we hand them the answer, we think it's saving them time. That's our pleaser doing that. And it's really not. It's really just telling them we don't really believe you have the answer. If you think about it, that's the underlying message. I've got to hand you the list. And so that would be a really cool thing to add to that.
Yeah. Well, these were chores, but yes, I like your idea.
Gotcha, gotcha. If you look around the house in your room,
What
what
needs to be
things would you come up with that would
love
make your
that.
life easier?
I'm gonna do
Right?
that well, it's starting on Monday. I have a break.
Okay, I can't wait to hear how it goes.
It's a great
I
idea.
bet you they'll be really creative, though. I bet you there'll be things you couldn't have thought of.
Yeah, they'll probably come up with better ones than I gave them. So I love that. I am totally gonna do that. Okay, well,
Awesome.
how do our listeners find you if they want to get a hold of you?
So my website is Rock Your Blocks, and on that first page, you can find whatever, socials you follow and connect with. If you scroll down, you can get on my email list and get my passion and purpose guide, which gives you 5 steps to begin that self work of reflecting, like really what's going on, what's kind of the noise that's keeping me from this and all of that. So that is a downloadable free activity guide. And yeah, that'll just get you on my list, and you can reach out and contact me. You can take that free saboteur discovery assessment and then get a free call with me as well to find out like really what's going on with these top saboteurs that you have. And it's quite interesting. I highly recommend it for everyone. It
Yeah.
is not a pressure sales call, but it is just fun to see what's possible when you really know which ones are there and which ones are working together to derail you from what you really want to do. So yeah, so Rock Your Blocks, just like it sounds, is the website. And that's probably the easiest way to reach me.
Well, Denise, thank you so much. So much great information. Mindset is everything. I never used to think that it was, but learning how to get over that and just get started. And so thank you so much for sharing it, and fantastic advice as well about the parent idea. So I really am going to implement that on Monday.
Yes, yes. Let's keep in touch because I feel like we do have the same niche. Maybe we can do something together with our folks.
Thank you.
All right, take care, Cherise.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Cherise Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Cherise Walker.